Lillian had left. This time, for real. No unresolved matters. No unspoken lingering words. No false sense of closure. There was nothing except a shut door, an empty porch, and a goddamn fine silence. However, for a long time, I waited there, waiting for an emotion to strike. Solace? Contentment? Verification? Nothing. Simply remain calm. Because the truth was that the night Lillian left our marriage, she was gone from my life. The phantom was simply vanishing at last. I didn't immediately tell Mia. She was the only family I had left after Mom and everyone else had sided with Chris, and she had been my sole true support system during this whole ordeal. However, I needed a moment to simply sit and process what had transpired. I proceeded with my usual activities: work, gym, at home. Nothing was altered. And then it finally dawned on me, Lillian was no longer important. She couldn't control me. She wasn't missed by me. No matter where she went, I didn't care. I didn't even feel compelled to share what had transpired, since it was completed. In this world, she was just another stranger. I gave Mia a call a few days later. As I leaned back on my couch, I remarked, "You're never going to believe who showed up at my door." A pause occurred, then no fucking way. I grinned. "Yep, Lillian." Mia blew up. "What? After 7 months? What did she want? No. Wait, let me guess. Her dream life fell apart, and she came crawling back? Bingo. Oh my God. Please tell me you slammed the door in her face." I muttered, "Better," as I stretched idly. I let her talk, let her pour her little heart out. Then I told her to live with her choices, and walked her right back out the door. Mia gave a triumphant whoop. "Finally, Ethan, finally you got the last word, and that?" I eventually broke into a genuine smile at that point, since she was correct. For the first time since the beginning of this whole fiasco, I prevailed. However, the cosmos? I wasn't finished yet, because I received a text from an unknown number right when I believed I could move on, without being reminded of my past. When did I open it to? I laughed until I almost choked. Since Chris sent it. "Hey man, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I miss you, bro. I hate how things turned out. I wish we could talk." I had a crazy smile as I gazed at the TV. After all this time, after I picked her over me, after allowing Mom to make me the antagonist, is he reaching out now? Horrible, utterly pitiful. I had the option to disregard it. Like I did with Lillian, I could have blocked him. However, a deep, petty part of me that still craved a final taste of vengeance made the decision to reply. Only 3 words. "You chose her." Then, he was blocked by me. When I told Mia, she howled, "Dude, that is some movie-level petty. I am so proud of you." I simply shrugged, but it was pleasant. Excellent. Because I wasn't the forgiving brother for the first time in my life. I didn't allow others to walk all over me. I was simply completed. What about the weight? The burden I was unaware I was still carrying. At last, it lifted. My history remained in the past after that. Chris, dead to me. Mom? I continued to act as though nothing was wrong, but I never returned her calls. Lillian? It wasn't my problem, but I'm sure it's awful someplace. I was concentrating on myself, my future, my joy, my life. What about life after them? It was so much better. The signs were always there, looking back. I choose to disregard them. Or perhaps I hoped she would change. At Colorado State University, I got to know Lillian Carter. Everywhere she went, she was the type of lady who attracted attention. Tall, blue-eyed, dark-haired, and self-assured without effort. She exudes a confidence that makes you feel fortunate to be standing beside her. I was a graduate student studying veterinary medicine and 5 years older. Nothing noteworthy. Just a regular guy doing his hardest to create a future for himself. What about Lillian? She was beautiful, impenetrable, and beyond my league, everything I wasn't. I used to believe that anyway. Right now, I now realize that she was merely killing time before something better arrived. After a few years of getting to know one another, we began dating. Although she wasn't particularly loving, I was drawn to her because she was intelligent, intriguing, and had a wild side. Initially, everything was fantastic. First, she would text me. She would arrange our dates. She would even pretend to be concerned. However, things gradually altered. She stayed away. Don't allow me in completely. And I believed at the time that she was only exercising caution and self-defense. However, what is the reality? She never gave it her all. After 4 months, we were married. It was a brief courtroom ceremony rather than a lavish wedding. No visitors, not a party. I found it romantic at the moment, as if we didn't need a great spectacle to begin a life together. Right now, I understand that all she wanted was a way out, a simple getaway in case something better came up. And a better item did appear. We worked with a bunch of heifers at a feedlot east of Greeley one day. Although it came with the job, it was a messy one. One cow was having trouble. She had been in labor for more than 30 hours. She would perish if I didn't step in. So I took the necessary action. I reached inside, rolled up my sleeves, and used my bare hands to pull the calf out. Blood, stop placenta. It was all over me. However, the cow survived. All that mattered was that. After that, I entered the workplace, covered in dirt, and prepared to take a shower. I heard her voice at that point. I can do better than this. Lillian's remarks. Chilly. Sharp. I was standing right there when I said that to the office secretary. She wasn't kidding. She wasn't kidding. She meant it. And at that very moment, I was aware. She was already making plans to leave. She formally announced it that weekend. Without a tear in her eye, she sat across from me at our small kitchen table and said, "This isn't going to work. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I just need to keep looking. See what's out there. No feeling, without hesitation. Just icy, parting remarks, as if our union had been a failed attempt." That same weekend, she packed her belongings, didn't request any money, didn't engage in combat, didn't turn around. And me? I pondered whether or not I had ever truly known her as I sat there and gazed at the empty spot where she had once been. It ought to have ended there. I ought to have moved on. I forgot about her. However, life? It's a funny way for life to bring back those who don't deserve another shot. Since only 7 months have passed, she arrived at my house, and now? She had been broken. For 7 months. That was the amount of time that had passed since Lillian left my life without giving it a second thought or even crying. I had to rebuild, pick up the pieces, and come to terms with the fact that she was never supposed to be there for 7 months. Radio silence for 7 months. And then, one evening, suddenly, she had returned. Sometime after 11 o'clock was the late hour. After working a long shift at the clinic, I was worn out and ready to fall asleep. Then there was a knock on the door, a tentative, almost shy knock. I opened it, anticipating a neighbor, a misplaced child, or maybe a delivery error. Rather, Lillian. She appeared to be a ghost of herself as she stood there in the weak porch light. Her previously immaculate designer clothing was now faded and wrinkled, and her hair was in disarray. But there was more wrong with her than just the way she looked. Her eyes were the source. They seemed cold and aloof the last time I saw her, as if she had already moved on before she had ever left. Right now, they now included something I never imagined seeing from her. "I'm sorry, Lillian." I uttered her name as if it were a foreign word, something I had lost. She took a deep breath. "Hi." We were separated by a dense, oppressive silence. She looked past me as if she thought there would be someone else there. "You're alone?" she inquired. I laughed, without a sense of humor. "Did you expect me to replace you that fast?" Her gaze wavered, as if she were unsure of how to respond. Her voice was hardly audible above a whisper as she inquired, "Can I come in?" My entire being cried out, "No." However, there was a part of me that let her enter, the one that still sought explanations and answers. Like a stranger, she entered the living room, as if we hadn't constructed this house together, as if she had never danced in that kitchen, smiled on that couch, or whispered false promises in my ear in that bedroom. As if suddenly realizing how unwanted she was, she stood there with her arms encircling herself. After a while, she said, "You look good. You don't." I didn't regret the words, but they escaped my lips before I could stop them. She laughed softly and bitterly. "Yeah, I guess I don't." Then again, silence, until she broke at last. "I made a mistake." Like lead, the words struck the air, heavy, unavoidable. I leaned back and crossed my arms, saying, "Oh? And what mistake was that?" She paused. "Then I should have never left you." I blinked. That was the last thing I expected from her. Out of all the things she could have said. For Lillian, Carter was not the kind to own up to her mistakes. She went on, "I was stupid," her voice breaking. "I thought I wanted something different. I thought I could do better." It was there. It was exactly what I had heard her say months before. With a harsh voice, I questioned, "And did you?" Glancing down at her hands, she swallowed. "No, obviously not. I could have stopped there. I could have told her it was 7 months too late, thrown her out, and slammed the door in her face. However, I didn't, so I was interested in hearing it. I was curious about the extent of her loss. "What happened, Lillian?" She drew in a trembling breath, tears threatening to well up in her eyes. "I met someone. It was there," she said, "right after I left you," in a sad voice. "He was exciting, charismatic. He made me feel like I was finally living the life I was supposed to." I sneered. "So why aren't you with him now?" She winced. Then, silently, because he used me. And then he left. Oh, that was the situation. I allowed her to wallow in her own pain and let the stillness linger. Her fissures were clearly visible to me. The assurance? Lost. The conceit? Lost. That girl who thought she was too good for me? Lost. And that was it? A damaged, desolate, and lonely version of herself. She uttered, I thought maybe we could talk," in a voice that was hardly audible. I said, "About what?" She paused. "About us." I gazed at her. Then, at last, I uttered what I ought to have spoken the day she left my life. "There is no us." She took a deep breath. "Ethan, no," I interrupted, getting to my feet. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to walk back in and act like I'm some backup plan, some safety net, for when things don't work out." She blinked quickly as she tried not to cry. However, I wasn't buying into it. Not now. After saying, "You made your choice, Lillian," the first moved to the door. "Now live with it." I flung it open. An open call for her to get out. She paused. Then she stepped back onto the porch and walked gently past me. I gave her one final glance. Not with rage, not with sorrow, nothing at all. "Goodbye, Lillian." The first shut the door after that, permanently. After she was gone, I stood there for a while, hearing the quiet, bearing the burden of all that has transpired. Additionally, for the first time since she abandoned me, I became aware that my anger had subsided. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't damaged. I had freedom. And that was the ultimate form of retaliation. My life felt like mine again for the first time in a long time. Not a ghost, No treachery, no nonsense. Simply be silent. And I came to a realization. Calm isn't noisy. It's not ostentatious. There isn't a great, dramatic turning point where everything makes sense at once. It's easy. It's waking up without experiencing a sense of dread in your chest. It involves sipping coffee without your thoughts, circling backward in time like vultures. It's staring at your phone without giving a damn if certain names appear. And that? My new normal was that. Chris didn't text again. I believe he finally realized there was no turning back after hearing those 3 words. You chose her. Excellent. I meant every single letter. A few weeks later, Mom made one final attempt. A lengthy, euphoric email about the importance of family unity, Chris's regret for everything, and me being stubborn and unforgiving. I finished reading it. Then, I didn't respond and erased it. Because you can't discuss family when you watched your kid extinguish his own brother's life and stated, "These things happen." Mom made her decision. Chris made up his mind. I also made mine. I was finished. But Mia kept me informed. She knew a little schadenfreude was good for the soul, not because I asked. Chris, poor, Lillian, even terrible. She apparently tried going back to the guy she left me for after Chris cheated on her. In her face, he laughed, abandoned her, left her with nothing. And now? She was now just another ex-wife with a heartbreaking tale, chasing a false dream while hopping from one man to another. When she informed me, Mia snorted. You should see the Facebook posts, dude. She's deep in the I deserve a real man phase. I simply gave a head shake. She's never going to find what she's looking for, I said. Mia grinned. Yeah, because what she's looking for doesn't exist. And that, the damn truth was that, as Lillian had no desire for love, she desired a fantasy. And when she understood that selecting someone even in the face of adversity was what true love was all about, rather than exhilaration, she took off running. Right now, she was circling about. And me? I had left the track altogether. Mia and I were catching up over dinner one evening. She asked nonchalantly, "You ever think about dating again?" I gave a shrug. Maybe. But I'm in no rush. She taunted. You should be, she said as she sipped her beverage. I mean, you've got your life together now. And you're not ugly. For an older brother, I guess. Wow. High praise. She smiled. I'm serious, Ethan. Not all women are like Lillian. I was aware of that. However, even being by yourself for a bit felt liberating. Not a drama. No problems with trust. There's no reason to question whether someone was merely waiting to find someone better. At last, I had created a life that was truly mine. Furthermore, I wasn't in a rush to give it to you again. Still though, Mia was right. Lillian wasn't like all ladies. And what if the one was ever the right one? Perhaps I would be prepared at last. It's funny how time clarifies things. My life collapsed a year ago. Right now, I can hardly recall what caring was like. Chris, Lillian, so-called family. Now they were merely tidbits in my narrative. I'm not sure what I anticipated after interrupting them. Perhaps I had hoped for a profound sense of fulfillment of victory against those who had deceived me. However, what is the reality? Seeing them suffer wasn't the finest kind of retaliation. The goal was not to get even. All it was doing now was not caring. And that's when I really prevailed. Mia and a few of her pals and I were in a bar one evening. Nothing unusual. All I could do was enjoy a night of drinks, laughing, and the realization that my life was at last mine. And then, suddenly, excuse me, a quiet voice. I pivoted. There she was, Rachel. She was different from Lillian. Not even close. Rachel felt warm where Lillian was piercing. Rachel gave me the sense that I was already enough, but Lillian made me feel as though I needed to prove myself. That night, we spoke for hours on end, not about the past, not about errors, not about regrets, simply about life. She didn't inquire as to whether I had healed from my previous relationship. I wasn't treated like a broken guy by her. She sipped her drink, laughed at my stupid jokes, and told me about the squirrel that followed her in Central Park. And I wasn't thinking about Lillian for the first time in a long time. Or Chris. Or the folks I abandoned. I was simply joyful. Mia sent me a screenshot via text a few months later. It came from Facebook, Lillian's post. "I'm tired of men who don't know how to treat a woman right. I deserve better." I gave a snort. Below, Mia's text said, "She still doesn't get it, does she?" Not at all. She would never. However, that was no longer an issue for me. I didn't answer Mia. I simply put my phone away, smiled, and resumed my normal activities. For I had, at last, really moved on. And that? I never needed anything more than that.